Hey everyone, good morning. Hello. Okay, so our overnight conditions, if you guys tuned in yesterday, we honestly nailed those conditions, to be honest, because it's actually insane that they held that 65, 85, 84 area. It's actually wild. So we were measuring from our very calculated point here on August 1st, which is linked directly with our annual ranges. When we went ahead and looked at that, we wanted to make sure that we'd maybe try holding a 346 point metric. And if we did, that would give us pretty good odds to just push through. And they held exactly that spot last night. It was actually pretty insane. So that was one of the conditions that if they were to hold this range, then we have pretty good odds of just pushing through. And they did. So you can kind of see overnight range yesterday. That was a very, very, very good hold. So no real breaks beneath the 8550 area. Like that was so solid. If you paid attention to where they opened us today, that was the exact level. It was insane. Look. And that was our 6609.25 area. Okay, this ended up being real-time open. It's just crazy. Like we talked about this yesterday, but this is insane. So our opening condition was met to the exact penny. Okay, so let's go look at real-time open today. That definitely wasn't a coincidence. One of my overnight conditions was we sustained 65.85. We come back and retest 65.96 to 6600, 6601. Maybe by opening range they retest 6606. 25, 6609, 25, and they did that literally right into open. Okay, like right into open is when they started testing this area here. Pay attention to the real-time open today. Exactly 6609, 25. That's nuts. That's actually insane. Do you guys know what this implies? And we'll start using the new contract tomorrow, just because I don't want people to get confused. But this was pretty crazy. So my thoughts is, considering that they push this kind of range, like they probably can give us, like, remember how I said we have 358 to 356 point metrics? So I figured this is probably going to be the first major overhead, and that makes total sense because even from like the opening range, the closing range, so like these areas here, these are also the 34 point metrics. Okay, like look at this off these open close. So we have a lot of overhead around this 2250. I think this is like 2125. Okay, so, and they did hit that this morning. They just have to close above, clear above. As soon as we close above and clear above this spot here, I don't see how they can't just push this range, okay? Another thing is off of like that 9-1 area from like last week's close would be like close to here. And I also realized that off of opening range, like the 6609, they're basically stalling a 13 point ratio here, okay? They just have to close above this 2250 area. So, and I think if they do, then we should be able to push the top of the zone. So there should be some overhead around, the first overhead I think is going to be around the 2526, but if they push us, let's say 22 points off open, should be the 31 area right to the top of the zone. If they push us 44 points off opening range for the week, which is the 8825, 8850 area, that should give us like 3250. So yeah, probably close to like 3133, that range, which is the top of the zone. All of that makes sense. Okay, the thing that I want to focus on though, okay, is do you guys realize that this implies that they could push that extra 346 points in range? Like it's actually a massive push here if they give the full cycle. And I was thinking too, like if they're gonna push 346 points, right, like how they did right here, off of opening range and lows from the first, that means that they can push this all the way through the closing range or high range from these days, meaning they could get this to like 6704. Like these are the areas we talked about yesterday, like these ranges here, if you guys remember. Okay, like 6617 off the high range. I think it'd be like 17, and then right beneath that 20 spot, like right here. Not by year end. They could do that literally by the 23rd if they wanted to. That's not that far. That's only 100 points. And remember what I said? If we get a zone sweep, are we setting up today for a zone sweep? Like, start paying closer attention by year end? No, that's a very bad assumption. This would happen probably even like as early as this week if they wanted to. Because a zone sweep, you normally sweep the entire zone and you don't return to it. That's the whole point of a zone sweep. What's a zone sweep? We talked about this yesterday. Oh, 6,900. Yeah, that would be a much wider target. But do you guys see how they could easily sweep this zone today, though? Like, we talked about this literally yesterday. If they hold 8.5, they can sweep the zone. They held 8.5. Okay? Does this look like this zone could be swept? This is why I want to still use the old contract a little bit. So on the new contract, it would imply that they could take it to the new zone, which would be 6688. That's the equivalent on the new contract, okay? Of 6633. I'm pretty sure. Someone can double check that for me, which would make sense because that would be like taking it to a new zone. And then I think taking it to the contracts, like the new contract's opening price of like 6644.45 is probably going to be the equivalent of like that 6704, 05, 06 that we just talked about. Maybe someone wants to confirm that. So like this area here should be, yeah, it is. Okay. That's actually insane. So like that's what it would probably be on the new contract, which would basically be like taking 346 points off the high range on the old contract, okay? Off the opening range right here. Okay? That's the 343, 346. Does that make sense to you guys? Because I think that new contract is right around here, right? That would make sense. So 6705, 06, that area there. And I did talk about that this morning. I said that that's probably the spot that they would take it to. Okay, so then maybe you guys should write that down, because like that's obviously going to be a huge area if they decide that they want to take it to this range. And I talked about this morning. Okay, so and that would make sense. So then if they took it to there on the new contract, that means, or on the old contract, that means that on the new contract they could push 6760s, I guess, if that was the case, like depending if they fully sweep this whole zone here this week. But yeah, we're definitely setting up for a potential zone sweep, and we haven't had a zone sweep in a while. Okay, and this is what I put in the report yesterday. Another way to think of this is the 6688 subtract the rollover is the top of the zone. So sweeping this area and early on in the week, along with breaking to the top of the channel, heavily increases odds of a zone-to-zone sweep type scenario. Do you guys know what a zone-to-zone sweep type scenario is? It would be like going from 6588 directly to 6688. So that so far is what we're setting up for, and I don't see any reason why this can't play out. They held exact lows. They opened at the exact range without a dip. That's why you buy right off the open. There's when you sweep zones, you don't get a pullback. You're not supposed to get a pullback. That's the whole point. I feel like the last time we had this happen was January of 2020. Do you guys remember when we had our sweep scenario? That very, very, very aggressive bull scenario? I feel like it was January of 2023. And I feel like they had like, now it's going to be hard to see because of all the contract rollovers and stuff, but this could be a good one right here. Look, this is a zone sweep right here. Do you see this? November? That's a full zone sweep directly to a full zone. Look, they held the bottom of a zone, swept directly to the top of a new zone. Do you see this? This is a good example. Usually when you have something like this happen, it takes out multiple ranges without any pullback. This is another zone sweep. Okay, they take it directly through, but usually with a zone sweep, you want it done on the first attempt. Like it usually shouldn't last more than like 2-3 days. Does that make sense? So like you see how they took it to the neutral spots back here? Basically, it retests neutral and then you just clear from neutral to bull zone. So instead of like stalling it in like the yellow area today, stalling in that blue area today, stalling, like it basically just completely pushes. Does that make sense? I added to longs, guys, off that 6609 hold back here. I told you guys in Discord for tomorrow's date. I might hold some contracts overnight into numbers tomorrow. I still have my long on ES off that 8-5 hold overnight. This morning was kind of a tough call on SPY. I basically just bought the 6609, 6610 hold and added off like 16, which obviously is not like the greatest entry points, but I just figured that they do have decent odds to take out 2-2 and try testing at least 2-9. And especially off like these low ranges. So off the overnight lows, they basically broke 34 points, stalled. So if they decide to push us 44 points, that's how we can get this range here. Off the session open, session close, same idea. They've already broken 34 points. Prior session open close, this is where there could be that tiny, tiny overhead. But I just figured that this is another reason why this area could be in play today. That's going to be the 44 point range. Okay. So there could be a tiny, tiny overhead around the 2930 spot. Like right in here, but I don't know. I feel like it's pretty good odds that they could push this. It's like, I think it was this area here, right? Yeah. I think it's like right around here, like the 2.8 to 2.9. So that's off lows. This is off that calculated spot, which is 50, so 2.9. Higher low, 30. Open close, 3.2, 3.3. So I would say that maybe that's the max range. We had some odds of getting into the channel today, but I feel like we have to break the zone probably no later than like 3.30 if that's the case. Like 3.2, 3.3. And if that was the case, then we'd start looking at getting like those 64 to 66 point metrics, maybe like off lows. Okay. Or you could even look at it as like this is the 17 point range off open. This is the 22 point range off open around 3132. So this would be like the 33, 34 point break. 34 point break is around that 4,350 spot. And if they do a very similar range to how they're doing in real time today off lows, like you know how like they're ranging around 35 points, 36 points off these lows and off like the session open, session close, off this 8825 spot. Do you guys see this? 35.25, like roughly. If they did the same thing off real time open, like off this 0925, it should take you to like 6644.50, which is essentially the new contract's opening price, right? Do you guys see the confluence there with that? So this could be a possibility. I figured this was more for overnight action, to be honest, but like before numbers, they take this to the channel or something, but we'll have to see. So far today, I'm mostly just looking for this area here, and they definitely have to start breaking pretty soon. Like we had some odds just before 2 to retest that 2250 area, and so far stalling. There were some odds just after 2. So this is off the 4 a.m. window. This is like the first break of like that 06 spot. So I just kind of paid close attention to some of these structure breaks this morning, just to kind of see if there was odds around here, and there was. I don't know if you guys can see that. Do you see this? It's like my only concern is that they delay till literally end of day, because they definitely could do that if they wanted to. Those odds are closer to just before and just after 3. Hopefully they move this before 2:30 though, like above that 2250, 23 area, because then it gives us some odds for the last hour. Tesla was perfect range though. Like look at this. This is insane. It hit exactly that 32.29 ratio off these pre-market lows. This is crazy. So overhead right now on Tesla is going to be off that 399.34, which is around 431.55, and then obviously off of the opening range 432.17, and these 401 spots, 402, these were calculated ranges. So this area up here on Tesla is going to be super heavy, basically between 431 to 435, and it's definitely got some room for some reversals here. I feel like half this range even, it could probably get that odd like 16, 17 points or so. Probably like right here. So yeah, this is probably a pretty big spot for it to hold around here, because that's like half the range. This could easily bounce back right here actually. Maybe watch like 204, 207 on Tesla for, because if this holds here, it would probably have to have like a massive stick, because I think that's half the range, and these are really, really calculated areas. But I didn't fully measure, and I noticed too, like you see how they stalled at 9.6 on Friday, and we wanted closer to like 9.9, 400, 401. There was about like a 4-point reduction, so I figured that's probably going to be the same thing today, like especially off like the high range. Do you see this? Look, it's actually kind of cool. It's like the exact reduction in this range. So technically speaking, like where they stalled real-time opening range and highs, it's like about 4.5 points, because basically it would have been better if they pushed to like 400, 401 on Friday, and then this range differential should be close to that 435, 434 area. 435 is going to be really huge on Tesla. So that's the offset on that one. Apple hit our 237 area in pre-market. I don't know if you guys saw that, and then like pushed a little bit here, stalled. It was definitely a huge wall. Then they broke it right at open, pushed it back, and then kind of stalling that wall area there. Nvidia hit that 178.44 spot too. I don't know if you guys saw this, and then kind of stalled 178.73. So still the same overhead on this one too. NQ This was really accurate. So this is the, I think this was the 60, hold on, this was the, I thought I wrote this down. This was, because I measured off of here. I don't remember if that was like the 214. Let me just, oh, okay, I remember now, hold on. That was the 44 point range, okay? That was the 286 point metric, this blue line right here. Okay, off this blue line right here, so that's a 44 point interval. And then that top range we said was, what was that top range? We just talked about that. That top range was, hold on. Oh, that's the 221. So it's basically, this is for NQ. So it's basically stalling that 34, 33 point ratio. Okay, like this area here, because that's 221 points. So you can, like, I did 214 and 221. And oh, that was off like the low range right here. Do you see this? Off like the overnight lows. That's exactly where it's stalling. It's actually pretty insane. Like, look. So you can mark those on your chart if you want. Off the actual opening range, which I'll mark. Hold on. We're still back testing this template too, so it obviously could use some work, but so far I feel like this has been like super, super, super accurate. So maybe off of these ranges here, which I didn't measure, this could be the overhead, like 24335-ish, this spot here. If they break on a 214 metric, probably close to like 24329. If they, but they'd have to take out this 24297 area. And I think right here it's stalling that 183. I mostly want to see too, like their sustainment here is basically the 143 point hold, which is those 22 point ratios. So it's kind of interesting that they basically held off that range here, especially off these measured marks, like in here, and then stalled to 44. So if that's what they're sustaining off of, then it would make sense that this area would probably be some overhead today, like 24,320, kind of like this range in here. Could probably measure that 214, 221, basically off this area. I was measuring initially off here, but, and you can add those extensions, like the 221 would be like right here, like 3. I don't want to make the chart too messy, like 24, 309, 310-ish spot. These are not exact, but so this is basically if they come and clear this area, then that's how they could get like these extensions off OR, okay, where those 30s, you know, could come into play. But let's just mark these for now today on this. I feel like those are probably some good ranges to have. I feel like if they take that out, that's pretty realistic that they could hit these spots here, you know. All right, let's take a look here. There were some odds just after 2. Probably closer to like 218 though, but maybe we'll watch NQ for an early follow through. So far some reduction sticks on ES after stalling here just before 2 o'clock. So let's take a look in terms of range. That's that 2.5 area, 2.6 area, which is essentially where we said that they could stall, right? 2575. Let's just mark that on here. I'm pretty sure we said this area here was close to 17 points off open. And in line with 34 points off this close from the 9th, I think. Yeah, it is. So they definitely have to hold the line though between like these neutral ranges. I probably wouldn't have wanted it to go back beneath the 14-13 spot, but we'll see. If they can hold some lows above this area here, which is extremely calculated and obviously happens to be opening range, then I think their odds are still favorable, but they'd have to have some good sticks. So remember back down here I said they have to hold and snap back over 13 and over 16. Right here, 14, 16, that's exactly what they did. This time around I feel like they'd really have to hold here, but they can't afford to stall like 21, 22 this time. They'd have to get some decent structure breaks and actually break the 2-2 area. Otherwise it's going to be at risk of heading back to retest 6606, which would negate odds of us getting a full zone break today and probably leave ranges in play for overnight instead. I feel like NQ has better odds today though than ES does. Let's see, 24,297. Let's just set some alerts on this because this looks like it's setting up a little bit better. And there were some odds around the 218 mark, so I'm just going to mark that in the 221 period here. The better odds were closer to the 228 to 232, but we'll see. Maybe if ES gets some better structure breaks here too, around 218, 221. I think ES needs at least over 662 150 though, 662 250. Like this is the spot it has to break above, close above, clear above. Google had a decent move this morning too, but that open stalled 1055 again. I don't know, I saw that this morning, but okay. Just give me 1 second, guys. How did you guys end up trading this morning? Did you guys have a fairly good day? Yeah, I feel like today's one of those days that you might have had to have been long overnight or into the weekend, but I still think there was some opportunities, maybe just buy some time. Do you know what I mean? Like you'd have to like, just because obviously it was a little bit limited on ES ranges, but maybe buy tomorrow's date or something like that, just so that you don't get chopped around in between, especially when they stalled the 20s here. I think NQ traded a little bit better than ES did though, because a lot of things were basically priced into open, right? Well, MSTR, I haven't traded that name in a while. Microsoft, I saw a lot of you guys talking about that one this morning. Oh, you played IWM. IWM's like right in our range box too, like this box range right here. So same thing. Everything's just kind of stuck right now at really big spots that could give some major breaks. Like, look at that open. That's a crazy open on IWM, like in this box range here for the week. So that, I would say that that's probably a clear trade above that 238. Probably worth keeping on watch this week then. BMNR. Alright, let's see here. Let's see if they can get this back over. I don't have levels marked that much on this chart. I'm trying to see if they can get this back over like this 1625, 1650, just so they can at least set up better structure here on ES. I don't know where we charted PLTR, but I think we charted it on like an 11-month chart. We'll look at that later. I want to see what happens here. Just because this was the earliest period. So not the highest odds. Like the better odds were obviously if they broke this just before 2 and just after 2, like around this window here, like closer to like that 56, 57, 54 mark. I feel like the issue with this was we had a decent period around the 4.8 and 50 and then kind of stalled around 5.4, so caused it to stall here. And then we had some odds around 0.4, 0.7 and it stalled. So, and ES same thing, like they broke this up just before 2 o'clock and then kind of stalled here. NVIDIA looks like it could retest highs here actually. What time is it? 19? Alright. I already have PLTR charted, I just don't remember which template it's charted on. I'd have to find it. It might be on the Apple template, I don't know. I don't remember. I have like 30 templates. It's not a name that I trade that often either. No, I don't know. I'd have to look at it later. Netflix I saw and it came back to the same box range here. I know Netflix has kind of been like a downer, but maybe we could watch this week, set some alerts on this one in case it comes back over that 217, 220. Yeah, I don't know where my template on that one went. But I do know that that one, in general, was breaking out of a 5 and 11 month range. So really it's just a continuation on this stock. I think what we did was we measured, this is the 4th bar, so usually when you get an expansion stick like that, you almost always can double in range. So whatever the full range is, which would be like here, you can almost always double that, which it obviously did. This is kind of where there was some overhead here, like around this area here, we said, and then when we took it off the actual high range from like here to here, and from here, where is it? Here. To here, I think this is where it was stalling. Do you see that? It was like exact. So basically you have to clear this area here, maybe set some alerts like for exact price points. Like once you get a proper structure break over these areas here. So this, where is it? Not that, hold on. These ranges. Up in here. They're not exact, but maybe mark them just so that you have them. So like your first major clearance spot has to be around here. Let me just delete this. Like that. You have to basically close above, open above this range here to take out that spot there. So it's actually getting pretty close. It's like that 173-ish area on this one. Or in other ways, you can just use like the base extensions. Like off the high range. This has probably already hit like 0.75 metrics too though. Like it's probably stalling the 75% ratio from here. I don't know if you can see that. Do you see this? That would be probably your next area that you could target. Basically 189, 97, 190 is a calculated overhead on this thing. And usually once you start getting some structure breaks like that, then you can start extending, but well, I'd be very careful, because if that thing comes back and clears, then it'll snap up to 205. Especially if the market starts getting some sweeps. All right, let's watch our secondary period here between 224, 228, 230, 232. These are really big points in the day usually. And Q kind of just stalled here. Yeah, this was the secondary period, but when I measured manually, the odds were closer to around here. I think it was 255, and then like just after 3, I don't remember if it was like 310 or 13, something like that, somewhere in between here. So if they really want to delay this, then we won't really get a big push right here, but I still would prefer that they keep this as far away from this area as possible. So I wanted to kind of hold above the 12, 13 range that I drew. Do you see that? So far this is a good, even though this doesn't look progressive, it actually is, because 218 to 221 sustained above 6612. So that's still progress, right? But I would now want the 224 to 228 period to retrace. 14 to probably the 16 area. But I feel like once we start hitting closer to 230, 232, 236, I want to start at least retesting like 20, 21. Does that make sense? Because even if they end up wanting to stall and delay till, I don't know, 249, 250, 255, 3, this would obviously be the better point in the day to break so that it gives us some time to extend this afternoon. Because so far they're definitely stalling and delaying some of the range. That's a really good hold, guys, off that 612 area that we had highlighted. Not necessarily, because it's only 10 points from, not even 10 points from highs, but like if they wanted to save it into the close to pin the close, but I feel like at the very least they have to start basing some better structures. Like they have to avoid this area now. Like they can't afford to come back beneath this range. So they'd have to start basing some better structures, specifically after that 2:18 p.m. period. So notice that stick was 217. Does that make sense? And at least start basing up here. Like they don't necessarily have to clear here, but they'd have to at least start holding, sustaining, basing, especially if they want to delay till, let's say, end of day or something. so that they can pin the close there. If they break like during this period, and let's say they get back to the 22, 25, 26 area, like before 3, then I would say the odds of getting into the channel in real time heavily increase. It's more so of whether or not they actually want to push this in the channel today in real time, which I didn't really think we had high odds once they stalled this point of day here and once they pushed beneath 09 back here. Even them breaking this back down right here too, like just ahead of 2.8. Yeah, NQ started to lag and pulled back. But maybe it'll base some better structures this time now off of here. Like off that 24,263. You just wouldn't want this to like fully break down range, because I feel like if they fully break this down and take it back to, let's say, 6606, like back down to here, then your risk really starts to increase this afternoon, because then your max ranges are probably in. And then at that point, you'd be limited to even getting it back to 66, 20, 21, 22. Because what they basically did this morning is they took out a potential max range around the 2250 area, like just slightly. Do you see this? And then they left a little bit of room for upside, but then brought it back to very neutral spot, which could increase volatility, and obviously left room for downside if they wanted to. So it's kind of like hovering in between here. Yeah, so does ES technically. Like the 6622 area is pretty huge. Like they technically don't owe us above this spot today if they don't want to, and if they just want to pin around these areas, especially considering 6609, 10, like these are very pinnable spots, right? If they want to just keep it there, they could. I still feel like they have decent odds, but we'll see what they do during this period. This is a really important period for sustainment more than retracement. Does that make sense? Like obviously we want to get back above this range in here, but it's more so to kind of sustain this yellow box range here, like specifically between here. Holding above 12, 11, 10 though helps our odds and decreases the probability of heading back to the 06 retest. This would also be a pretty similar period to kind of like what we said back here in terms of like these single stick breaks that we had, like back to 14, 16. Have to see if they have enough strength to kind of bring this back and turn it around a little bit. What do you guys think? How many think that high of day is in for the session? Let's do a poll. set that for 5 minutes. So let's see, this is their point to basically start turning around, because you don't want to get back beneath this 12-11 area around 230.32. So kind of like what I said back here where they had a bit of a turnaround period. You'd want something similar to start playing out here, otherwise that risk heavily starts to increase. My phone is in the way, I can't really see. I think high of session comes when NQ hits 300 marks. Yeah, well, I think the probability definitely decreased, but we'll have to see what they do during this period here. I feel like pretty important times of day to at least try to retrace like how we talked about here. So far, that's not a bad stick at 3-2. 3-3 trying to have some follow through. I feel like though, because they're doing this in two separate parts, right, you'd probably want to get back at least to the 16-17 area, and probably not any later than like 238. This might end up being a very good hold here though, guys. Like holding off 66, 10, 12, 11, like that could be a very solid structural hold if they do decide to hold here and then consolidate above 66, 14, 16 this afternoon, especially before 3, because then it leaves basically the bull zone for the last hour. But we need some progressive sticks here. When we manually looked at this, I think it was, I don't remember, I feel like it was closer to like, what did we say? Like, especially around these ranges here. Pretty sure it was closer to 3 o'clock. Yeah, it is. Like just before 3. Some of these odds are super late, like 327. And then like 359. Do you guys see that? Like these are, that's why they might just wait till like literally end of day if they wanted to. And then I think that these odds up here are probably into the close, like 314. Well, I mean, Tesla's already almost fully reversed. I don't really think it's playing as big of a role as you think it is. I want to see if NVIDIA breaks. I think NVIDIA is actually the leader here in terms of relative strength. I just want to mark this area here. Maybe we'll watch if NVIDIA can get some high of day retest here around the 3.6, 3.8 marks. NQ had a really good hold off that, guys. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if maybe it could end up being like a really good structural hold, especially off this area here. But then they'd have to really try pushing. So calculated odds were around like 5.5 for ES. I'm not really sure about NQ, but we could probably just watch to see if they break here ahead of 3. ES had some odds though just after 3. So like in here, I don't know. Still some reduction though off 3.4, 3.5. NQ still a little bit better than ES, I think. Can we get some more votes, guys? Let's see. So 20, majority are voting that highs are in. 662527 second place. Channel odds for real time, really? I don't know about that. I feel like they'd really have to ramp this thing by 3 o'clock, 3:30 if that was the case. Or at least get it out of this yellow box range. Like you don't want to be stuck in here during 3 o'clock, because that's going to really decrease your odds. So far, these odds that we had manually calculated just before and just after 3 are looking a lot more likely. Okay, I'm trying my best to keep this clean today too, so let me not make this a huge mess. Because I think this is your template. Yeah, maybe. Well, these are also enough ranges to be considered like a max overhead for the session. Netflix actually had a really good recovery though, like back to this box here. Apple's also still holding off that 235. But same thing, like Apple getting back to 237 doesn't really seem that likely unless this can get back at least over like 236.50, you know, in like the next 30 minutes. But at least we know that these are pinnable ranges, so kind of to limit some trades this afternoon. Especially on like a zone bound kind of day. I'm gonna leave these odds for like the just after 3. Do we have any catalysts this afternoon after 3 o'clock? I didn't think that we did. I think that's also equivalent to like SPY going back to 660. Like holding above it. Where's SPX trading? 606. So maybe SPX getting over 66.20, 22. That would make sense. And then on the new contract, it would be like 66.88, correct? So I think we're on the right page. Or like tracking the right things here. We'll just have to see if they have enough strength to hold a line. Especially off these ranges. So I think this is like the 74, 75 point metric that we talked about. These ranges in here. Probably that 84 point range where they were holding earlier. It's like 75, 76. The next area that we said we measure is like 110. So this is the 110 range off that 24,152. $110 is, again, it's that the 110 mark we said was 17 point ratios equivalent on NQ. Okay, so there probably is some overhead here then, like where it stalled. This spot right here. Okay. Then I'd say that this is probably definitely a pretty important area that you want to hold. Because I think that's the equivalent of this losing its 17 point ratio. Well, being stuck in the neutral zone is definitely not the most ideal area to be into the close, but technically speaking, from August 1st, these are even 6609.25 open is technically enough to be considered a max range type of scenario for the session today if they didn't want to take this any higher. But obviously the 6620s would give us much better odds heading into tomorrow pre-numbers, right? So I didn't check to see, but oh wow, it is exactly 88 points from, that's insane. I wanted to double check that, but I wasn't entirely sure. We're stalling exactly 88 points from the September 11th lows, guys. So that's another way of looking at this, where they might be limiting this just a tiny bit, especially in terms of these areas here. These are probably the 132, 128 point ratios. Do you see this from last week's open? Do you see that? And from last week's lows? So hence this area could have, you know, a lot of overhead here, because they don't technically really owe us too much more above this range in here. And all of these are aligned with the neutral spots. And then from opening range, they already hit 34 points, 32 points, 34 points. It's not really disappointing. They could just do it in two parts, which is why you'd probably have to have some time, and why I said I would probably buy tomorrow, not today, if you're gonna long the 6606 to 6612 area. All right, there's the 6605, 75, 6606, 25 back test. This was the secondary spot that they could hold this afternoon, but could decrease odds of getting some extensions and start limiting range maybe to like the 22, 21, 19 area versus 25 to 29, 30, 31. And mostly if they can negate it and retrace pretty fast here. And these are really good examples of reduction sticks. I think the period to retrace here is coming up though, like between the 48, 55. NQ, same thing. We're saying like they might retrace back these 75, 84 point ratios here. It's like 84.5. This area here, 84.5 is equivalent to 12, 13 points, right, on NQ. I'm trying to keep these memorized, but pretty sure that's what it is. So, and these are off our max ranges that we had last week. I'm just utilizing these to see if it's holding support. Do you see that? To give like, so it probably has to retrace really quickly here to these areas, okay, to give some odds of getting some retracements back. And that's a really good example of how they could start limiting it. So maybe like closer to like 24,275 for this one. The equivalent to this would be getting back over 6609, 6610. And it has to do it quick. So they have some odds around 248, 250. Probably can't stall during these periods, otherwise that risk is going to increase of heading back beneath 6606, potentially retesting the 6601, 6600 area that we talked about. 9497 were some spots too for overnight overhead, so like that would be worst case scenario if they don't retrace during this period here. NQ has to get back over this 24,263, 2460 mark. I mean, maybe, but I also feel like that's, I don't know, like too like obvious of a move. Do you know what I mean? Like that just seems too easy. I highly doubt that they do that, personally speaking. Like, because these are still very good areas to hold. Like 6606, 6610 is still a neutral zone, and these are very calculated from August 1st. So, I mean, these are 346 point ratios here. The only way I think that would be a probability is if they were trading beneath these spots before 3. Like if we were trading like back in here around 3 o'clock, then that would be a big sign that they could retest overnight lows. But for now, I feel like they're still in a neutral position here. It's not really... So let's see here. This was a very important time to try retracting back over this 6609. Can someone document this? Izzy's 248, retracing 6609.25, retesting 6610. This is a very important period to try negating any increased risk in real time today and keeping odds in play of at least staying within our high ranges of 6610, 6620, 21, 22, 23. Really good reversal on this stick. On NQ, I wanted this back over this 66 or 24 is 263, 260 area that we said, right? We think we said 60. This area here, which was basically the equivalent of an 84 point break, which is literally the 13 point ratio. Okay, these areas here. This is definitely a tougher area though, for sure. But still within range, so. How important is it though that you get progressive sticks during this period though? Like back in here, around like 207, 208, 228, 230, 224, like they kind of just chopped around, broke back down, back tested. Could you afford to do that during this period though, between 248 and 255? Can you stay stuck in this neutral box? No, this thing has to push, right? Like this is such an important period here that, especially ahead of 3 o'clock, it seemed really calculated around 254.55. So I would imagine that probably some odds there to retest that 64.14.16. 250 getting a nice retest here of that 66.12 area. See if they can try clearing back over this neutral range, especially during this little period here ahead of 3. So far, like, okay liquidity, not the best, but it's okay because we still have some time. I'm gonna mark the 5-4 stick too, just because this was manually measured. I think it's 5-5, but we'll watch 5-4, 5-6. Okay, these are the better odds to get this back into a new zone, at least over 66.16. Okay, because I feel like if they're still beneath 66.14 by 255, then that's going to be an issue. Anyone take the long down there off the 6606 hold? Like I was saying before, like I wouldn't right away start thinking that they're going to drop this. That's a really stupid way of thinking, actually, because they're not going to give up a 346 point range that easily. Even though it looks like they might just dump it, I would still set some tight stops though, just in case they don't. But the good thing here is we have time. So there's about 3-4 minutes. They need over 1450 and 1625 though. Like even just to get it back in nest here. I don't even care if they stay stuck here for like an hour, as long as they bring it back to this area here. You don't want to stay stuck down here, okay? NQ got a really good retracement here back over this range. NQ, I feel like probably just needs that 110 spot that we talked about, so that's probably right around this area here. I don't really think it has to get the full range back, but at least to, like, if we're measuring off these areas, probably closer to like 24,286. Basically the retest of like this range in here, I think would be good. Nice. What time is it? 5:03. This is essentially going to determine if they're going to keep this stuck, guys, and pinnable this afternoon, just FYI. Because that is a probability if they decide to not move this. Netflix looks like it could get some stick breaks here. Maybe we'll watch Netflix too to see if it takes out that high of day and overhead. It's that 1207, 1208 area. Apple got really good sticks at our 235.26 to that exact penny. Remember how we were saying Apple basically needs at least back over 236, 236.25, 236.50. This would be a good spot for it to be in here ahead of 255 and 3 o'clock. Nvidia kind of moved ahead of these and then stalled. But Nvidia also didn't retrace back down nearly as much as some of these other names. Tesla also held that exact calculated range of 403. FYI, that's actually pretty crazy that they took it right back to the calculated spot and held. Okay, let's watch this in maybe a 10-second chart, because I just want to see. There's about 10 seconds left here for the 254. 254 didn't really have odds, but I just wanted to see if they'd at least retest 6.614 during this period, just to help odds a little bit better for the 55 stick. But I really want the 55 stick to retest 1450, ideally 16. If this can get back over 16 during this time, that would be even better, because this is essentially the period that I think they need to try getting it out of this neutral box range. And if they start to increase volatility here or keep it stuck, then that's going to start implying, guys, that they might want to pin the close today and keep this. That would really suck, but they might want to keep it pinnable, or maybe delay until that 327, 359 period, because those were the secondary odds, which would really suck if they made us wait that long. Actually, there was a window between like 310 and 315, but still. Mass reduction here off that 255. This point in the day had odds of clearing back over 14. I just want to see what kind of range this is implying. So 1.5 points in range implied that they could have tested 15, 1550. What about NQ? NQ kind of just stalled right here. We'll see if the 5-6 stick holds and tries again here, just ahead of 3. Do you guys see how 5-5 could have taken out this 14 wall here? I would say that it was a little obvious once 5-4 kind of stalled just beneath 14. Like, it would have been better if 5-4 took out 14. I think that would have increased odds of taking this out. And you know what? They might have stalled it because it only had odds of hitting 1550. So if that was the case, sometimes they delay if they know that structures won't break. Does that make sense? Because like if the overall range it gave based off a high to low ratio was going to stall this high here anyway, then they'll kind of delay and wait until the next window opens, which is probably why it would have been better for them to have taken out 14. Do you see what I'm saying? During this period, had they taken out 1450 during this period, they would have had odds of retesting that 16.25. So unfortunately, this so far is implying that they might keep this sideways. We've got one more window coming up here, but now conditions become very, very, very critical that they start sustaining above that 11-12 mark. Otherwise, it's just going to stay sideways and keep that risk on this afternoon. I think where they close to before 3 is going to give us a pretty good idea in terms of whether or not they want to get out of this box here before, or into the last hour, sorry. Oh, Netflix actually tested that spot though. Do you guys see that at 55? Netflix actually got that 60 or that 1207.29 test here. Right off that 5.5 mark. So maybe some strength in individual names instead. This could maybe get that push to the 12.11, 12.12 area today. Apple also got good strength, guys, off some of these sticks. I don't know if you guys saw that. Apple tested that 236 at 5556 and is starting to push here just ahead of 3. Like right off the 235. Tesla still held the line pretty nicely. NQ kind of flat, but kind of like right in between. I'm not too worried about the 3 o'clock window, only because there were some odds after 3, so I'd start getting more concerned if we were still trading in this area here, like past, like let's say like the 3:15 window, because then that's going to imply some delays. So let's see here where they take this just ahead of 3. Hopefully it's at least above 66.12. And we'll watch to see if 3 o'clock can retest the 14 range. Apple actually nice long off the 235.26. And good volume too coming in. That's the first overhead we set on NQ. It's around that 80 and 88 mark. So see if ES can get a stick break to 14 this time. The only reason why I said I'm not too concerned if they don't break before 3 is because there is a second window here that could give an odd of retesting, but we'd have to be a little bit more concerned once this window closes if we're still trading down here. Watch the 301 follow through stick, especially after a stall at 14 here at 3 o'clock. This would actually be a really nice structure hold if they end up holding the line here off 06 and 09. Mostly if they gave some decent sticks during this period of time, like around the 310, 12, 14 mark. As long as they don't keep it in this little box. This is kind of the wider box range right now. This is the, basically this is like upper neutral range, like between 06 and 14, but I would prefer to be above the 14-16 area for the last half hour of the day. How many still think that high of day is in? Because that was the majority vote. I think this hold is still good, that they can still give some odds, but like I said, I feel like if it starts getting closer to like this period here and we're still trading in this range in here, then our odds are going to start really increasing that they're pricing this in. And during this last half year, like between 327 and 330, 332, you probably want to be at least over the 16 mark, okay? Just at least increase these odds. So far, this is still constructive enough to not be fully priced in yet, but we did have odds after the bell, close to like 414, 430. But once we start hitting, let's say this period here, and we're still stuck in here, in this area here, then yeah, that high is probably in. And they keep reducing the range just beneath 14. I don't know if you guys are noticing that, because that's the top of the neutral zone. And it's almost like they do it because they know that they have time. So like back in here, they brought this down and then turned it around right at 4.8, stalled at 5.5. Do you see this? Stalling 14, 14, 14. Maybe because they know they have until, you know, 310, 312. We'll see though. Because I feel like if they're going to stall 14, then they better at least hold opening range. You know what I mean? I think the move on Apple was a little bit more constructive than ES. I think our worst nightmare is staying stuck in the yellow zone, like in general. I hate this area here because it's usually a very sticky area to trade. I love how positive Slipperman and Booth always are. Okay, let's see here. So, like I was saying, if they're going to try getting some breaks around this point here, they definitely have to try holding opening range this time. So if that was the case, then this would be like the holding stick above OR. But they'd really have to push. Like they can't afford to stall post 3 o'clock, especially during like a calculated period like this. Where did they stall today's open when they opened? 12? So they're basically staying within the first 2 minutes of opening range right here is what they're doing, which is basically the neutral zone. And it's actually crazy that they've kept this within the neutral range after opening it there this morning, because usually the opening range can imply the kind of price action you can get. Thank you. How many think that they're going to break the 14 wall here? Let's do a quick poll before this window opens up. This window might be off by a minute or two. I didn't really calculate it that great, but 614 break. All right, ahead of, I'll just say ahead of 3:15. I don't remember exact time, but I think it's like 3:13, 3:11 or something. Let's try getting some votes on that. For getting out of the neutral box, this would probably be the cutoff, because then otherwise they're quite delayed. Okay, so same thing here. This is like a little bit of a better structural hold now. Right here on NQ, so that's the equivalent basically of ES's hold off OR. But they need some really constructive sticks in these next 3 to 5 minutes. Otherwise, we have some very increased odds of staying stuck in this neutral break or range or whatever you want to call it. Tesla sticks a little bit more constructive here too this time. Apple, I did say, needs over at least that 40-50 mark, so kind of where it's sitting. Oh, thank you for the channel points. Okay, so there's, I think, an odd at 310, but it seemed like this window here was the most likely for this retest. Obviously 5455 would have been better. Yeah. Majority voted yes here. So I would say, like, at the very least, you probably want to get over this like 1275 spot now, and then like wherever they stalled at 3 o'clock and 5.5 stick, that's going to be super important. And then since 50 was calculated overhead, but we want to get above the 1625, and then 1450, 1425 ranges. So let's see here. There's definitely an odd that they could try again here, but like I said, I feel like if they start stalling again right here, like before that 15 period, then they could really start compressing range and delaying. So probably important that they start getting some retests of 66, 1375, 66, 14, 1450 here. There we go. Those are some better stick breaks. Let's see here. Right at 311. This is setting up pretty nicely to try retesting here at 312, 313. Hopefully it can at least close over the 1350, 1375 mark. I'm going to move this up to 1350 and 1375, since 1375 is where 5.5 stalled. So maybe if they can get to 1350, 1375, then this has a slightly better odd. There we go. 312 calculated time, retesting that 355 stick. There it is. Perfect timing. Perfect timing, guys, and perfect price. 66.14.50 being retested here. This is an ideal time of day to get the hell out of this neutral box range so we don't stay stuck here all afternoon. That being said, I still think they have to take out this 15.50, 16.25 wall. The better odd was at 313 to take out like the 15 wall, but I wanted to at least try retesting 14.50 here by 312. Nice, you're welcome. Still hasn't fully broken yet, so we have to be a little bit careful here. What about NQ? NQ kind of stalled too, so we'll watch here. Like I said, there could be a minute delay. I figured 15 is probably the cutoff. But at least we tested 14.50. It would have been really bad if they didn't even test the 14.50 mark during this period here. How much time is left in this stick? This is the 30-second turnaround here. So let's see. We're going to watch 14.15 as well, guys, just because, like I said, I could be a minute off. But this was the wall of retesting 14.50. Also, to see if they can close this any higher than like the 5.5 stick. So it seems like they're closed above 5.5 but kind of stalled that same spot that 5.4 stalled there. Do you see what I'm saying? So your 14.15 could be the follow through or negation sticks or whatever you want to call them, similar to these ranges here. Like if they stall then and they retrace back down, then you're basically resetting that exact same cycle, unfortunately, which is so far what they're doing. The only thing that's more progressive about this is we actually took out 14.50 this time, but still no closing sticks above. So we'll look to see what they do off the 15 mark. No, it didn't. It kind of just stalled there, which, do you see how that would just keep it stuck? Like that's the kind of the theory, or I don't really know what to call that, the logic behind the trade or whatever. Or delay it, right, until that 327, 330 window if they wanted to. Because at least they met the minimum condition, but that's not enough for continuation during this period. Oops. Do you guys see the volatility that came right back at 315 because they didn't break here above the 14.50 mark off the 313 window? A little unfortunate because this just keeps that sideways price action on and delays this, which, like I said, this is where they could keep this pinnable all afternoon until potentially the 327, 330 window, or even as late as 359 if they wanted to, which would be like right into the close. And that's if they wanted to limit range and make it so that, let's say 21, 22 was actually max for the session. That's how the highs could be in. So far, based on what they've done during this period here, and this period here, it's looking like the high of day might be in. And they've compressed range a little bit, especially continuously stalling the 14, 16 wall here. This would kind of be like their last window to reduce those odds a little bit, but again, that pressure of holding over 09 and 10 becomes super high, and then it makes it so that it's like very tight PA, like in this range. For NQ equivalent, it would be like this area here. It's very, very, very tight here. All right, let's do another pull. I'm only going to set this one to 2 minutes just in case they do an early break around like the 320, 321 midpoints. I feel like if they can bring this back over the 12 mark in like the next 2-3 minutes, then that could set this up really nicely here, because it'd be like a early midpoint break, but technically speaking it doesn't really have to till the 27-28 mark. There is something that stands out this time if they decide to break. In terms of retesting this 50 mark, and I think it would be off this slightly higher structure, okay? That would align right back to that 50 wall, okay? Like 1550 wall, do you see that? And that's usually what happens in neutral spots. They just start recycling ranges so much that it's like 0.5, 0.25, 0.75. So like I said, if they try bringing this back during the midpoint, which would be here, like around the 20-21 mark, they have pretty good odds setting up for the 27 to 30 period. So let's see. 320 getting a retest here of that 61375. I can't talk. This would be like the midpoint retest ahead of 327 if they wanted to get some early structure breaks at 320, 321. No, I didn't really have like proper coffee today. I made one this morning, but it got kind of cold and I didn't really drink it. I hate streaming sideways sessions like this, but I don't know if it helps you guys, even though we're not really doing a whole lot. Okay, see, like this is a good structure hold right here. Okay, so maybe look to see. We'll watch to see if they can get some better structure breaks. This is starting to drag out a little bit, but I do want to try keeping my chart clean though, so I'm trying my best not to make this super, super messy. All right, so I could obviously keep an eye on that, but the time I manually calculated was closer to 327, so we'll obviously be watching that period instead. But breaking ahead of the period might give us better odds this time. Does that make sense? Because like back in here, they did break at 311, 312, but not the 14 wall. So maybe this time if they can break the 14 wall ahead of 327, it could really increase our odds of taking out 15, 16 during this period. Does that make sense? And at least get us out of this area here into that last half hour. Remember what I said, if we're out of the yellow box before the last half hour, probably closer to 327, we could still retest high of day, correct? $66.14.25 retesting here. They're really dragging this out to keep range compressed this afternoon. So if that was the case, then our 27, 26 sticks could have odds of retesting 66.16. NQ, solid structural hold right here. I think Apple is retesting 3.6. Okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So they're right back at the 1425, 1450 wall, like that we had from here. Okay, but sometimes when they do like a slightly earlier break, it implies that they might want to actually take out the range this time. Yeah, they are, but that's why I said earlier than I said it 4 hours ago that I would probably start doing tomorrow's expirations based on how they started trading PA. Or at least like Wednesday, Thursday expirations if you wanted to. Intraday odds started to decrease. Okay, so let's see here. This time they at least tested 1450 a bit earlier. We're going to watch the 2.425 period to see if they're still going to set up odds to clear off that 2.7 stick. I know it is kind of boring though, but at least it, well, at least it, I don't know if it helps you guys, but it helps me understand the kind of ranges that we're stuck in and why. It would just be so shitty if they kept it in this box all afternoon though. I hope they at least bring it back over 21, 22. That'd be a much better pin, like if they don't want to give us this area this afternoon, which so far it's not looking like it. Even Netflix is setting up for a retest here for 327.28. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Do we actually get a better structure break this time? These are some of the later odds this afternoon. So far, every single one of our calculated times tested our exact price points. So the better thing this time is we held a little bit higher, which aligns to us breaking 1625, and we broke 1450 ahead of time. So, or not broke it, but I guess tested it ahead of time, which gives us odds to actually clear here on time this time. So let's see. What do you guys think? How many here voted yes for 327? That was my first vote for yes, just because structure looked more progressive this time. Especially off the 22 stick. I wasn't surprised that they reduced it at 2.3 though, because they probably had to recycle that 1 point to wait for 326.27, if that makes sense. So I would say for this to get some better structure breaks, you probably want 326 to at least retest 15 or 1450, I mean. And some better structure. So basically this is the point here where we want to try breaking some structure here. Because if they start to reduce us again, then we're stuck until close. Which I know you guys don't want to hear that, but I would have wanted maybe a little bit higher here at 26, like by 0.25 or so, but we'll see. This was the odd to retest that 1450 wall here. Off 2728. This time it's a bit of a wider window between 2730. Meaning if it stalls, they could easily negate. So far stalling. I could tell that's the case though. So usually when they stall right off the open, like you see how it stalled 1375, they wait usually for the final seconds to get a better closing stick. Does that make sense? So they reset the open basically and close it better. And that's usually how you can get the minute follow through stick. So like off 2.8. Does that make sense? So like 2.8 would be like instead opening at 14.25, testing 14.50, usually within like the first like 5-10 seconds. And then usually off the 30-second interval, you'd probably want to see if they can actually get the stick break that you're looking for, which is retesting the 12-13 marks, okay? So let's see here. I would be pretty surprised if they didn't. 1450 retest here at 328. We have a bit of a 3-minute window here, so I'm not too concerned. Because the idea during this period is to at least start trading above 13, 14. Like, oops, especially as, so let's say during this period here. All right, let's see. That's crazy how they're stalling this neutral zone like to the exact wall at 1450. So what do you guys think the condition is going to have to be here off the 2.9 and 30 sticks? To give some better odds. So far the odds are not looking that great because they didn't really close above the 1375, 1425 area. What would they have to do to keep this little window here in play? It's kind of an extended window through 336, but I think them closing it back beneath the 1375 ahead of 330 could definitely bring this back to back test these ranges here and increase volatility. So you definitely wanted more of like a stick that looked like this, okay? Like this. Yeah, but I could tell right away that they weren't going to do that off 30. Just even off how that 2.8 and 2.9 stick closed. Like they're starting to run really short on time here. Because they basically haven't gotten proper structure open closing ranges around the 1375, 1425, 1450 area. Which creates like a lot of sideways price action. They still have some odds though till 36, so I would say like 3.2, 3.3 probably the cutoff for a proper open close. Because I really don't want them to keep this stuck to like the last 5 to 6 minutes beneath 14.15. Consolidate lower into the close. Well, they still met their conditions though of testing 1450 during these periods, so, and sustained the 06 area here. I would say only if they probably brought this back beneath OR by like the 36 mark to 38 mark, then your odds would obviously increase of that being the case. But this is, to me, this is looking like it's implying another delay, sadly. But also remember too, when like they want to pin the close somewhere and they know that they've already met their potential max ranges, can they not just give like really big sticks into the close after keeping it stuck all afternoon? Like those are some odds too, but as long as you're sustaining meeting price points at specific points in the day. It has, but today could be pinnable. Okay? You guys have to remember that. Today could easily be pinnable due to these ranges. These are very pinnable ranges. Where they opened today was technically enough to be considered a max range for the entire session. So was the 66.2250. We're not going to get any progressive price action until we get the stick breaks over 1450, 1550, 1625. And it probably has to be in a single stick. Okay, we still have 2 minutes here though. So like I said, they could still try to pull back, push some slight progression again too, because this is technically still a higher low. But they're running very, very, very low on time. This is the exact PA that we talked about though, is staying stuck sideways in this neutral box range, especially if they don't meet during these endpoints here. Like back here, back here, back here, and now here. Just quickly, yes or no, you guys. You think that 3.6 will clear this 1450, 1550 wall? So like I was saying before, they probably have to get some better closing sticks this time, because these were not constructive open close. Like this, you would have wanted to close at 1425. Okay? This you wanted to open around 1425 versus 1375. This you opened beneath 1350. So you'd need like some closing sticks like this at least here ahead of 3.6. Okay, like ideally if it can push to like the 14 area here like this. Look at that in the first like few seconds. 335 retest here of 1425. This is setting up a little bit better this time for the 336 stick. See if they can get some better structural open closing breaks, especially off that 30-second interval here. I'm going to watch the 3.8 mark too, because that's a generic point for the market usually. They're still stalling 1425. You guys think that the 3.5 was a good enough close? No, it wasn't. I'm starving. Pay attention to the range on that stick too, because that usually can be pretty telling. They might have just ended up stalling this area here again. 175 above, maybe close to 16. Yeah, they basically delayed into close. Some of the odds for end of day were super late, like 358, 359. I marked our 355, 354 periods just because those are the generic marks we watch every day anyway. So our end of day conditions could be if they still stay stuck beneath this area by, let's say, 348, 350, then obviously we could retest these lows here into the close. If they clear above this, then we still have some odds of retesting that 19, 21, 22. And that's mostly if they want to save the range until end of day just to keep this pinned. A really good pin today would be like 66, 21, 22, 22.50. Even over 14.50, 15.50, 16.25 would not be bad. I just wouldn't really want to stay in this box, but technically speaking, 66.09.25, 66.06 are still reasonable pins. It would just kind of imply that they're going to compress range a little bit pre-CPI. Okay, let's start cleaning this up. NQ held a bit better too, I noticed, like right here off the 3635. So might have some better odds for those last 15. Yeah, it sucks when you also hit max range early in the session and then consolidate. Yeah, I think we'd know that if, let's say, like 4.8, 4.9 start trading back around here at that time. I'm gonna mute myself for a few minutes, guys. So general rule of thumb is you can usually check the final 15, like your 4.4, 4.3, like pre-15 marks, along with like 3.48, 3.49. Especially if they start giving us like some better reset odds. I figured NQ could maybe break this 8.4 wall here as early as 3.45, maybe 3.44. 341 getting a nice structure break to 66.14.50 here on ES. This is setting up pretty nicely to break ahead of the final 15, which can really set us up nicely for end of day odds. We need some volume here though. NQ, I'm watching that 8.4 overhead. This is a really good spot to be trading in here ahead of 3.45, guys. 66.14.75 being retested here. See if we can get some nice structure breaks of that 66.16.25. If we can break this kind of range here, we have odds of retesting that 66.22 during that 350 period, but they definitely have to get out of this box the last 15 to avoid back testing this downside range here, okay? This still isn't high enough, by the way. They need a little bit higher than here. They need proper opening sticks, closing sticks. This is starting to improve though. I figured it was probably closer to 4.7, 4.8, but I guess we could watch the 45 period. Do you guys see how sticky they made this afternoon though? In these ranges here? And they're doing this so that they can keep volatility open because it's still beneath 1550 and 1625 and it hasn't closed and cleared above the 1450 spot yet. Like the highest close here is 1450. So that is progressive because that's the first close above or at 1450 at least. But you see this volatility stick here at 4.3. What do you guys think? Let's quickly, where do you guys think they're going to be trading this by 350? This is still definitely sideways in this box range here with some slight progression being made, but still no real stick breaks. I figured the period's closer to like 348, 49, but we can watch the 4-5 stick here too to see if they get some better structural closing sticks. Come on guys, where do you think that they could break this to by 350? Hurry, before they actually clear or break beneath these ranges here, because right now they're still beneath 1450, 1550, and they're still above 6609. Yes, what? I'm asking for a number. Give me a number. I think that if they can take out 66.14.50 and 66.15.50 off this 345 stick and break that 1625 as early as 348, they can probably retest 2125, 2175 by the 350 stick. But that's only if they can clear here. I would say probably as early as 4.5 and then break up these ranges at 4.8, 4.9 because these are ahead of that 350 wall. So you'd have to take out 1625, probably 18. You don't necessarily have to take out 1950 before 350, but at least like this range in here. So the next like 2-minute sticks are very important. 345 getting a 66.15 retest. This is really good timing here. There's the 8.4 retest on NQ, right on time, which can set us up pretty nicely for the 4.8, 4.9 sticks. So obviously you'd want 4.6 to test 15, 15.50. See if you can get some structure breaks here off 4.7, 4.8. These are the first closing sticks above 14.50 finally. You'd want some nice closing sticks to above 15.50 this time to clear 16.25. There's the 15.50 retest here ahead of 348. This is setting up a lot better this time for our 350 clearance, potentially. So 350 setting up for 1975, 2150, 2250 area. Okay. Is that a 16? Oh, 16 test. Okay, not 25, but that's okay because we still have till 4.7, 4.8. There we go. 247 getting a test here of 1625. That's perfect timing here because we want to get back into this blue zone off 4.8, 4.9, which is around 1725, 18. I didn't think that we had to break 1950 before 350, but obviously that would really increase our odds. some better structure breaks here finally. See if they can get some closing sticks over 1625. Come on, guys. Where do you think they're going to take the 350 stick? I think that they could maybe take it to our 2175, 2250 area if they can clear probably at least 1850 in like the next 2 minutes. Right, here we go. 1650 close at 47. That's really good because this is setting up for that 1725 break here at 348. So bull neutral areas, guys, are like 18, 1850, 19, 1925. These are the areas I want to see if they test ahead of 350, because if they do, that'll really help odds. But have we met conditions ahead of 350? Minimum conditions, at least. To at least give a retest of 22, even if we don't take out highs. Come on, you guys. Yes, we did, because we finally closed above, cleared above 1450, 1550, 1625, okay? So see if we can get those structure breaks here. Really nice breaks on NQ. Setting up for that retest here at 350. Still a wee bit shy. See if they can close over that 1625. Like I said, I don't think they have to necessarily test 1850, 1925 before 350, but it would be nice if they can at least get some proper structural sticks over 1625. Ideally 17, but it's okay. So Euro, it looks really bad, right? Because of like how they are stalling just beneath highs, but they met like minimum conditions, which is one reason why they could tag it and then turn it around. So far NQ stalling 24.29450. Watch to see if it turns around after that 30-second interval here, kind of like ES stalling 16. 25 in that 17 mark right here, because this is basically a bull neutral range, so it can still keep neutral spots in play and like kind of the upper neutral range. So like I was saying before, if they want to make it so that 1950, 2175, 2250 become max ranges for the real-time session today, that can really increase volatility here, especially since they didn't clear ahead of 350. Does 350, 455 usually give us a window to turn around? Yeah, but I would say that not if they can't sustain over like 66, you know, 12, 10, 09. They'd probably have to try retracting as early as 353 if that was the case, because they're still keeping this range bound. This is a really good example, especially on NQ. Good call on that trim. Because are these also pinnable ranges for the session today, around 0925, 10, 13? So like I was saying here, if they can retract back over like that same thing, 1375, 1450, they can reset this up for another retest here by 5455, but I think it was a good call that high of day is probably in. and that they're likely limiting end of day ranges closer to like this area here. Also, our odd was for exactly 359, so the, I guess, what would you call that, end of day lower high or like high of day retest, because it would probably not take out highs, could occur at the very final minute of the session today. Yeah, Tesla a little bit stronger. Tesla also, we said, could get back to that 16-point interval, which I think was somewhere in here. Okay, so let's see. These would be the times to reset this off 5.3. Like get back over 1375, 14. Google was really strong this morning and then kind of died off. I stopped watching it though. Do you guys see these slight resets here? Still not strong enough though. Apple really stalled off that 36, 40, and 50 wall. This is the 5-4 stick, right? So 5-4 right back at that 1375. These are the same sorts of resets, like off 1450, 1550, 1625, basically to see if your odds increase in comparison to the 348, 350 periods, okay? So we should see some potential resets here. I'd say for this to get progressive, you'd probably have to close or take out 1550 on this stick, because this is competing with that 345 stick. Does that make sense? So it would be like you'd have to retest 1550 and 1625 during this period to give a better odd for 55 to break this structure high, take out 1725, and maybe test that 1850 mark or 19 mark or whatever we said. See if we can get a closing stick over 1550 here. We'll see during the 30-second turnaround period, because so far it's still stalling. Like once it starts hitting that 30-second interval, you probably want to at least come back over 1625 here. Hi. Hello? Hi. Sorry. It's my sister calling saying I have to grab my niece today. Okay, see, this isn't bad. Do you guys see the last 10 seconds here on that 30-second turnaround? Like back over 1550, 1625. This is exactly where I figured they would do this into the close here. So I would say if 5-8 can get over these little walls that I drew, like 1850, 1925, probably off like the probably 5-7 stick, then our 5-9 has those odds of tagging that 2125, 2175, 2250. That was my max range into the close today, because I figured that they probably are not going to break the high of day. They could, but I figured that they probably won't because of where they traded this, okay? And so it'd be like a lower high, like into the close. NQ had odds of breaking those, so NQ was a little bit stronger than ES. NQ, new high of day here. 24,297 break. We were looking that if NQ gets these breaks here into the close, it could hit 24,309. That was the next target, 24. I don't know if it'll get to 24,320 in 2 minutes, but this was kind of like the end of day target, 24,297 to 309 area. Midpoint would be around 305. ES testing 66,1925 into the close. These are the exact spots I figured they could take this to end of day if they can come back clear into the final 15. They really did a good job of limiting range today. They knew exactly what they were doing, so pay attention here. Like I said, if ES can break 66,1950, 66,2125, are you guys listening? At this 358 mark, the 5-9 stick had the highest odds of pushing end of day highs, or basically like the end of day retest of highs. Does that make sense? Like to retest high of day. The highest odd was 5-9. So even if it doesn't necessarily take out the highs, we want to try testing that 2125, 2250 area. 2250, 22, 2225 is really, really, really calculated. So, and I think the condition would have to be that they'd have to test 50 here, 1950, and try closing over this mark at 1925, 1950. There we go. There it is. This is looking good for that 5-9 stick, guys. Here we go. I think we're gonna tag our spots. NQ tagging our areas here too, I think. Into the close. I was looking for 21 to 22 into the close here. I think we might get it. Please give us 21, 22 into the close. 2250 would be so nice. $21.25. Did NQ tag that 310? How much time do we have left? 30 seconds to go. Wow, they're tagging it exactly. It's 24,309.25. That was the exact mark. Crazy. These were the end of day potential breaks. I figured ES could tag 21.75, 22.50. There it is. 22.50 tagged on ES right at 359. I didn't think that we could take out high of day, but I did figure that they could take this back to 21.75, 22.50. 21.75 close after tagging 22.75. That's a perfect stick on ES right at 359. They'll probably just consolidate now into the close after the bell and take this back around, probably close to like those exact areas that we talked about here. Awesome session. We actually tagged our 22.50, 22.75. They closed at exactly 21.75. That was exactly what we thought they could do into the close here, especially with this kind of limitation. I think the 350 really limited us. Just give me 1 minute, guys, and I'll recap here because I want to make sure I covered all my contracts. Okay. Thanks, Katie. I want to point something out here in a second. Just give me a minute, though. Because there's something that really stood out. And I want to show you guys, but just give me 2 minutes to make sure I'm like fully covered here. Okay. That was a really nice recovery. Those contracts ran over 100% into the close. Okay, so I think that it was this 350 stick. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is probably the differential off highs, I would imagine. Or like pretty close to it. Like, or these ranges that we could have triggered. Like, remember how I said earlier we had some odds around like 4, 6, 6, 2, 7, 2, 8, 2, 9. Like this is, these are probably the ranges here. Okay, just like 6.25. These are probably the 34 or 35 point ranges, like close to 2829. So we could probably still trigger these after the bell, but it seemed very likely that they were going to stall. I was off by 0.25 sadly, but 66.2250, 66.2275, those were really calculated areas to take this to right at 359. 359 would be the real time, basically the real time lower high, if that makes sense, because it would still be a high at an area that we really would prefer, but then still a lower high for the real time session. Does that make sense? So I knew that high of day was in, I would say by the 327 mark. Once 327 stalled like that, and even the 5859, these were really good sticks, but I would say if they really wanted to have progressed this, 350 would have been a lot stronger. Does that make sense? Like, I think 350, they would have probably pushed this to at least here, okay? And that would have maybe given us an extra 3.5 points to work with into the close, which could have, you know, got us a retest of 2.5, 2.9. Even like 350 pushing up to like 19.20 would have probably given us a retest of high of day and a break to 2.4, 2.5. But regardless, really good session. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun. We're in the bull zone. See if overnight conditions, honestly, I just want us to maybe expand the zone a little bit. So obviously test these areas here. And we'll see where we're trading ahead of Prince. Any questions, guys? Are you guys good on your end? No problem. Thank you for watching. I hope you're able to catch that too. You're the best too. You're really accurate with your ranges here too. I can't believe they actually closed it at that 24,309, 24,10 area. Like, they closed it right in between here. These weren't exact ranges either. I just marked them with the chart. I think if we measure exactly, let's see what the ranges were exact actually. Hold on. Because we said that if they break off of, well, what did we measure off of again? These were the 221, 224 areas. What's 224 again on NQ? Like 221, 222, 224, those are like the 34 point ranges, I think. And that would make sense. If ES was averaging 35.25 today, then it would make sense that they'd probably average 35.25 on NQ. So 35.25 times 6.5 is 229.12. So that might have been their wall right here, like around here, 229. Off this area here. Isn't that crazy? That's probably the overhead. So this is a 34 point break basically off this range here. And then I think we said off of here, that's the 204, 214. And off of these ranges here, I think we said we'd hit 143. So yeah, right around here. These are probably the overheads. 143 is the equivalent of 22 points, right? And I think this would be the 13 point ratio. Yeah, it is off open. Do you guys see that? So 13 points on NQ would be that 84.5. Okay. Meaning they probably would have had to have held close to here by the 5.4 mark. And then probably if we're measuring off of here, those are the 110 holds. These are the 84 point metrics here. Do you see them? So that's where we'd get the 110 breaks, then the 143. So this is for sure the overhead, like 24, 3, 18, 19, 20. That's the SPA. I would mark that on there. That's the 22 point break. So on ES, the equivalent of that would be probably off of this is probably the 17 point hold. Yeah, it is. Do you see this? Yes, I held half the position because that was a good real-time close. I wouldn't have held though if they didn't take out 2-2 into the close. Oh yeah, that's exactly 34 points from real-time or session open, you guys, for the week. Can someone write that down? 34 points from session open is where they took this to. And that's the reason why I said we could tag 62250. So I guess from like last week's close at 50, that's exactly 34 points off 7.5. So I guess 66, 2250, 66. Sorry. We're the max range off our yellow lines that we marked there. So after the bell, you'd probably want them to take out this area here, like 25, 2575. Do you see this? When they come back and clear this range here. And then obviously off like the real-time opening ranges, that's where we could get to 4344, which is basically in line with the contract rollover opening price. So I guess if these were the accurate ranges, maybe we'll have to look at, like, if they stalled here. Do you see what I'm saying? You could probably mark like the, what was the next range on there? 214 to 221, 214. Like around 24,390. I think this was the 221 area, like right around here, which is the 66 point metric. Hold on. It's basically in this range in here. I'll just leave these for overnight tonight. And then I think we said max was 286. I don't think they'll do this before the close, but I guess we can just mark these before tomorrow's session. Okay. And then the max on NQ is 429 to 442. 429 to 442. I guess we can look at these for oh, thank you so much, Smos, for the gifts and the subs. Thank you so much. 442 would be probably like right around here. So I'm just gonna mark these guys for prints tomorrow, okay? Oops. So NQ, I would say a good close on this would probably be probably minimum 24,294.50 to 24,297. ES, obviously, like I said before, I definitely want this to close above that 1450 would be ideal. Anywhere near 21, 22, 2250, 2275 would be the best case scenario, since those are our 34 point intervals off session open, session close for the week. And that could put us in play for basically a full 66 point extension here. So maybe close to like 68 points, like 6656. On the new contract, that would be 6713-ish area, okay? Overnight conditions, I just want to sustain the neutral zone. Obviously 6609, 6606 becomes huge support. Ideally, if they're going to expand the zone tonight, we probably want to try holding now off of the 12, 13, 14 spots, okay? And maybe push a little bit to these areas in here. Okay, if you guys are all good, I'm going to end the stream. I will see you guys